What's up, nerds? It's Pat from the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. Today I want to talk about which legend is the best in Apex Legends. But before we get started, if you want to support this channel, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell. That way you get notifications anytime we post any type of content. Also smash that like button. That helps us out a lot. So if you've been living under a rock, Apex Legends is a free-to-play battle royale game from Respawn, the studio that brought us Titanfall. And it's a first-person shooter. It takes a lot of different elements from a lot of popular games. It's kind of a Frankenstein's monster, if you will. It currently only allows you to play as a squad of 3, but the rumor is that they'll be adding solo and duos soon. So I'm recording this video, and you can only play a squad, but that might change as quickly as before I post this video. So stay on the lookout for that. Like many other Battle Royale games, you drop in with no weapons, no loot, nothing other than your character's abilities. And it's kind of a mad rush to get loot and weapons. There's been a couple of games where I've dropped in and unfortunately I wasn't paying attention and I dropped in with some other squads and I was killed before I could get a weapon, and that happens in a lot of Battle Royale games as well. So it's no different in Apex Legends. That's why it's so important to make sure that you pick a legend that has abilities that fit your play style, because that's the only thing that you can control when you first start off a game. So very similar to games like Overwatch, there can only be one legend per squad, so it's very important, especially when you first start out, to be comfortable with at least 2 or 3, because you never know what order you're gonna pick. So you never want to be left out in the lurch, only being good at like one character, and then that character gets picked because you had the third pick. So especially want to be comfortable with at least 2 or 3 legends when you first start out. Alright, so the ultimate question that I want to answer is, what's the best legend to use in Apex Legends? And I wish, for the sake of this video and for you nerds, that it was a easy answer and that it was very straightforward. But like a lot of these games, it really just depends, and I wish this didn't sound like a cop-out, but I think it will. It really just depends on how you play the game. So what I want to do with this video is I want to go through each legend, their passive, tactical, and ultimate abilities, and discuss them and talk about whether or not I think they fit a very aggressive style, a very defensive style, or more of a support type of character. As you can see on the screen, I have yet to unlock the last 2 legends. So the legends that I have unlocked are the ones that you will get when you download the game for free. But these last 2 cost money, and I haven't decided whether or not I'm willing to pay the money. Now, if you nerds really like this video and you hit that like button or you comment below, and this becomes a pretty popular video for the channel, I will go ahead and buy them and do a video like this for the remaining 2 legends. But just for this video, we're going to talk about the 6 that I have unlocked right now. Like I said, they all have a passive, tactical, and ultimate ability. And as you can see on the screen, each of them have this little symbol right here, the very top right corner of their little square. They do have a little symbol, so you have a little scanner. On this one, in Gibraltar, you have a shield, and Lifeline, you have a plus sign or a medic sign. Pathfinder, you also have a medic sign, and these 2 characters right down there have bullets, so you would assume, obviously, it kind of gives you a clue what type of character they are, with these 2 characters more of aggressive, more of a soldier type of character. So, let's start off with Bloodhound. So if you hit X, or if you're playing this on PC, I'm sure they'll tell you what button it is on PC. But you click that and you can see each of the abilities. So the passive ability is Tracker. Foes leave behind clues for you to find. So essentially, you can track where your enemy has gone, which can be very helpful. There is a very big map. Kings Canyon is pretty large for the small amount of people that start off each one of these games. So it is kind of helpful if you're tracking a squad, especially when you only have a few squads left, to kind of find where they are. There's been several games that I've been in that I'm like one of the last squads remaining, and it's really kind of hard. Even though the storm moves, it is still kind of hard to find some teams, especially if they're playing more defensive and kind of hiding. It is kind of hard to find them. So the passive tracker ability is kind of useful. And then your tactical ability is Eye of the Allfather. Briefly reveal enemies, traps, and clues through all structures in front of you. That is very helpful. Again, if you're trying to play more support to your squad and you want to find out if there's any enemies in this building. If you're just trying to get loot and trying to avoid enemies at the very beginning of the match, it is kind of helpful to scan that building and figure out if any enemies in the building or structure. And then your ultimate ability is Beast of the Hunt. Transform into the ultimate hunter, enhance your senses, allowing you to see cold tracks and move faster. So essentially what happens is you can track enemies better. Also, you move faster, which can be helpful. Again, if you're tracking enemies, you can get on them quicker. So if you play an aggressive style, that can be somewhat helpful. I find that Bloodhound is more of a support type of character. If you have very aggressive squad mates, I think that you can be very, very helpful in determining where enemies are. So your more aggressive squad mates can help clean them up. So I find that Bloodhound is a very useful character if you play a more support role on your squad. So the next legend that I want to talk about is Gibraltar, who, just by judging by their little symbol, you would assume, because it's a shield, that they're more of a defensive type of character. In a way they are, but I do think that they would work with more of an aggressive player as well, and I'll get to that here in a second. So his passive ability is a gun shield. Aiming down sights deploys a gun shield that blocks incoming fire. This is very useful, especially in a gunfight, because it will block incoming fire, but it's not as useful as you might think because it only blocks where you're aiming. So you have to be aiming down to use this gun shield, plus it only blocks fire from where you're shielding from. So it's not like your tactical ability, which is Dome of Protection, which encases you in a dome. It's not like that. It's literally just where you're aiming down, where you're looking at. So if an enemy were to flank you or get completely behind you, it wouldn't protect you at that point. The only thing that would protect you, like I said, is the Dome of Protection, which throws down a dome shield that blocks attacks for 15 seconds. This is super useful in a firefight, especially because your enemies, or not your enemies, your teammates could also use it as well. So it does become very useful. And then your ultimate ability is Defensive Bombardment. Call on a concentrated mortar strike on a position you mark with smoke. So it does say defensive literally in the title of the ultimate ability, but I actually think that this works more aggressive. I've seen a lot of people do these bombardments in firefights, not as a defensive mechanism, but more as, hey, we know where you are, we have this ability, we're just going to blow you up. I've actually been caught in one of these, and it kind of sucks, because if you're the unlucky one that's caught in the middle of them, you can see them, you see where they're going to drop, and you see where they're going to explode. You do have a little bit of time to get out of it, but it is kind of hard because there's quite a few of them, and so it does get kind of hard to get out of it. So I do think that he is actually a pretty good character to start off with if you've never played this game. If you're just literally picking this game up after you watch this video, I think that he's a good character to start out, because he is a little bit more forgiving. You do have the gun shield, you do have the Dome of Protection, so if you do get in the shit and you're not very good at this game, you do have a lot of defensive abilities, but then you can also blow people up with your mortar strikes. So I do think that it is kind of a mixture of both, even though you would assume immediately that he was a good defensive character. I've seen him use more aggressively as well, because you do have the shields to protect you if you do get in the shit and you kind of bite off a little bit more than you can chew. So the next legend is Lifeline, and as you can see, she has the little plus sign, which she is definitely more of a traditional medic type of character. You also see that plus sign with Pathfinder, and I'll talk about whether or not I think he's a true medic here in a little bit, but Lifeline is definitely your more stereotypical medic type of character. So her passive ability is Combat Medic. Revive, knock down teammates faster while protected by a shield wall. Healing items are used 25% faster. So this is useful in two different ways. So while you're healing yourself, it does take some time to heal yourself, as you might imagine. That's pretty much standard through Battle Royale games. But if you're Lifeline and you're healing yourself, that happens a lot quicker, which is very useful, especially because a lot of times when you're healing yourself, you're in a gun battle. And so you want to be able to heal yourself as quickly as possible. But also, when you heal your teammates, you do have that shield wall that's very helpful as well. Your tactical ability is DOC Heal Drone. The Drone of Compassion, DOC, automatically heals those near it over time. So it's basically just a small drone that hooks up to one of your teammates and it heals them pretty quickly. So that is very helpful. But again, it's definitely more of a defensive support type of character versus an aggressive character. And then your ultimate ability is Care Package. Basically, you drop in a care package full of quality defensive gear. So this is your straight defensive support type of character. The care package is pretty useful, especially when you're first starting out. If you can get it early, let's say that when you looted in a particular area, all it had was weapons and doesn't necessarily have a lot of like medic equipment or something like that. This care package is pretty useful in that sense. You're not going to get weapons in it, or at least not very good weapons. So you definitely want to still loot some good areas and get good weapons. But the biggest thing for me with this character is if you play super conservatively and you just want to help out your teammates, and you have kind of what I said with Bloodhound, you have very aggressive teammates, I think that Lifeline can be used very well. So the next character that I want to talk about is Pathfinder, and he is my main right now. I've been playing with him a lot. As you can see by his skin, it's very flamboyant. I've been unlocking a lot of his skins just because I've been playing with him a lot. As I was talking about with Lifeline, he does have that plus sign, that medic symbol by his character, but I really don't feel like he's a true medic. And I'll get into that here in a second. His passive ability is Insider Knowledge. Scan a survey beacon to reveal the ring's next location. I do think that's helpful. It is a pretty useful passive ability. You don't have to, obviously, just judging by the fact that it's called passive, you should be able to figure out that you don't actually have to do anything to initiate this ability, which is useful because I know that, like, especially with games like Fortnite and these other Battle Royale games, when you get a smaller and smaller circle, it's sometimes harder to judge where it's going to land next, where it's going to shrink. So having a Pathfinder on your squad is very useful, but it really only gets useful when you get down to the last couple of squads. So it's not the best passive ability. Your tactical ability is your grappling hook. Grapple to get out of reach places quickly. I find that this is pretty useful just to get places quicker. It's not a very long tactical ability as far as its reach. Like, you have to be fairly close to whatever object you're trying to grapple to, and you don't have a ton of control of the grappling hook. So I find it more of I'm sprinting somewhere and I want to get somewhere quicker, and you can kind of slingshot yourself around rocks and stuff to gain a lot of speed. And so that's generally how I use it. It doesn't have a very long cooldown either, so it is kind of useful in that sense. You do use it quite a lot, so I do find it pretty useful, not necessarily to get to out of reach places, but just to get places faster. And then your ultimate ability is your zipline gun. Creates a zipline for everyone to use. I find this to be very, very useful, especially in a firefight, to get out of somewhere. Like, I kind of play like a baby sometimes, or some people would call me a bitch. And I like, when shit gets too heavy in a game like this, I like to get out of it pretty quickly. Plus, it's also helpful for your teammates to get out as well. So you basically just create your own zip line. There are zip lines throughout this game, but it's helpful when you play with a Pathfinder that knows what he's doing, he or she is doing, that they can create their own zip lines and get you out of the shit quicker. So like I said, I don't think that this is a true medic character. It is more of a support character like Zipline. If you play like me and you play very conservatively, I think that Pathfinder is a very important character and can be a key character, but I don't see him getting played very much, and I wonder if that's because there is a bit of a learning curve with his character. You really do have to get a good feel of him before you start playing as him, because just by looking at his passive, tactical, and ultimate abilities, he doesn't feel like he'd be a very powerful character. But when you can get the hang of him, I think that he can be very, very useful. So that's actually why I play as him. I'm also a bit of a hipster, and I like the characters that not a lot of people play as. So I don't have to necessarily worry about somebody picking a Pathfinder. Literally, since I started playing as him, no one has beaten me to pick him. So I've never had to be like, oh shit, somebody picked Pathfinder, let me play as Gibraltar or somebody else, because no one's picked Pathfinder before me. Alright, so the last two are probably the most popular legends as far as me playing and just seeing other people pick them. I personally, again, play more conservatively, and these are more of the aggressive type of characters, at least how I see them being played as, so I generally don't pick them. The first one that I'm going to talk about is Wraith. Her passive ability, again, is the ability that you don't actually have to do anything to initiate, is Voices from the Void. You hear a voice when danger approaches. I kind of think of this as her spider sense. So it can be very useful, especially if you're an aggressive character. You know when shit's about to hit the fan before it actually hits. So it can be very useful. Her tactical ability is Into the Void. Reposition quickly through the safety of the void space, avoiding all damage. So essentially, you, for a short period of time, can basically travel knowing that you can't be hurt. Which, in my brain, I thought, well, that would be a very good defensive ability to basically run away. But that's just the way that I play the game. If shit hits the fan too quickly, I immediately run away. I'm a terrible teammate. So initially, I thought of her as actually a very good defensive character. But, and we'll get into her ultimate ability, because I had the same thought process with her ultimate ability. But the more I see her being played by other characters or other gamers that are much more aggressive than me, she's a very aggressive type of character. So where I thought she could play as a pretty good defensive character, people are using these abilities to be more of the aggressive type of player, which I think works well, especially when you're playing with a bitch like me that wants to be very cautious and very defensive. It helps to have somebody that plays this character really well. So her ultimate ability is the Dimensional Rift. Link 2 locations with portals for 60 seconds. So again, I thought immediately, well, this would be a good way to get out of the shit. But it turns out, while watching certain streamers and playing with certain people, it turns out, sorry about that, my game just kicked me out because I guess I was talking for too long. But basically, the way that I see people play with her with this portal is they know where a team is and they want to be able to get to them as quicker than they think that they can get to them. And so a lot of people use the portals to initiate the gunfight, where I thought that they would use it to get away from the gunfight. So I think that's a very interesting way to use the portal. But it's more definitely of an aggressive character than I originally thought she was going to be. And then the last character, very similar to Wraith, is a more of an aggressive type of character. This is probably the character that I feel like is, if that's how you play the game, this is how you want to, this is the character that you want to play with. And that's Bangalore, which I said her name wrong. This is like the fourth or fifth time I've had to reshoot it because I say it differently and wrong every single time. Her passive ability, and I keep wanting to say passive aggressive, I don't know why. Her passive ability is double time. Taking fire while sprinting makes you move faster for a brief time. Again, I originally thought of this character as like, oh man, I could run away. But again, that's just my mindset. But I've seen people use this to get closer to the person that they're firing at, and versus the way that I would use it, which is run away, run away. Her tactical ability, the smoke launcher, is very similar. Basically, you fire this smoke round that creates a wall of smoke. Again, I thought of this as a way to kind of, oh, I'm going to create a diversion and disappear. But I see a lot of people play her as, hey, I see an enemy ahead of me. I'm going to shoot this smoke launcher, and that way they can't see us and we can flank them. Or if you have like a character like Bloodhound that can track them, you can use them in conjunction with one another and you can actually see through the smoke. So I think that's a really cool way to play as this character. And her ultimate ability is Rolling Thunder, very similar to Gibraltar earlier. She has an artillery strike that slowly creeps across the landscape. Now, this seemed really cool at first, but I don't actually see this ultimate ability used very often, mostly because it takes forever for it to work. So it actually sounds really cool, but in application is not as cool as it sounds. So it can be useful, but I think in my mind, I was thinking of the artillery strikes in Call of Duty, which are pretty useful. But once somebody knows that they're about to get hit, they can kind of go undercover, and it doesn't work as effectively as you might think it would. So Rolling Thunder, even though it does sound cool, it's not used as much as I thought it was going to be. But she's definitely more of the aggressive type of player. Well, there you have it, nerds. That was my breakdown of all the legends in Apex Legends and whether or not I think they fit more of an aggressive playstyle, a defensive playstyle, kind of a support character, what have you. Of course, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button, ding that bell, smash that like button. And of course, I'll put all the links to all of our other stuff, including the podcast and Nerd You're Looking For, in the video description below. For Patrick Kuhn, I am the Nerd You're Looking For. Take it easy, nerds.